Additional music for this video was provided by, with permission, VHS Glitch off his album Halloween Strangers. He is a great synth artist, and I recommend you check him out after the video if you're into music that invokes 80s dystopian sci-fi and slasher horror vibes. You can find a link to his Facebook and Bandcamp in the description below. Go give him some love. If you're like me, the last time you were playing Mortal Kombat X and played a match that was Jason vs. Leatherface, you probably thought to yourself, man, a game like this with a full roster of slasher characters would be pretty cool. Well, you're in luck, because that game exists. Terrordrome. Terrordrome is an independent fan-made game by Hurricane Studios. The game was built using Enterbrain's Fighter Maker, which is a game-making engine similar to Mugen. The game is a crossover fighting game featuring characters from famous slasher and horror films. The first version of the game came out in 2012 and has been updated until March of this year when the final version of the game was released. The characters in the game include Michael Myers from Halloween, Freddy Krueger from Nightmare on Elm Street, Ash Williams from Evil Dead, Chucky from Child's Play, Leatherface from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Ghostface from Scream, Matt Cordell from Maniac Cop, Tallman from Phantasm, Candyman from Candyman, Herbert West from Re-Animator, Pinhead from Hellraiser, Pumpkinhead from Pumpkinhead, Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th, and Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th. Yes, two Jasons. One is the classic Jason, and the other resembles that of the remake. The game kind of explains that the reason there are two Jasons is because the human portion of him and the undead portion of him were split into two beings. Believe it or not, there is a really basic story to the game. The story is presented via brief cutscenes at the beginning and end of each character's arcade mode. Each character has their own mini-story that sets up their arcade mode. The stories are kind of cryptic, and the cutscenes don't explain much. There's also some noticeable spelling errors in the text of the cutscenes. Needless to say, if you're one of those people who like a good story in their fighting game, this one doesn't have it. But if you're looking for a game where you can play as, and kick the hell out of, your favorite horror characters, this is it. The gameplay is similar to Street Fighter. Two slashers face off and beat their opponents until their health runs out. Pressing backwards performs a block, and there are punch, kick, weak weapon, and strong weapon attacks. Each character has several combos that they can perform exclusive to that character by inputting a direction with a various attack command. Each character also has a projectile and/or an assist technique, a taunt, and a dodge. Each character is limited to 2 projectile or assists per round, depending on the character, unless refilled by a taunt. Taunts give a special buff to the character for a limited amount of time, such as enhanced attack damage or, like I said, refilling a limited assist. The combos, taunts, assists, and projectiles are all indicative of that character. For example, Ash can summon mini Ashes from Army of Darkness to hold an opponent, allowing him to strike with his chainsaw arm or gauntlet. There's also an energy bar that you fill up as you damage your opponent and take damage from that opponent. When the bar is filled, you can perform a super move, which does massive damage. If it is the last round and you are about to win, you can also perform a slasher finisher when your opponent is low on health. The slasher finisher instantly decapitates your opponent in a fatality style. They were going to have full cutscene finishing moves as well, but due to lack of time and budget, they were cut from the final version of the game. You can still see some of the finishing cutscenes, however, and I will link you to a video from the devs showing those off in the description below. The presentation of the game is done very well, especially for a fan-made game using the Fighter Maker engine. The character models are surprisingly detailed, and their animations are very fluid. Each character has attacks and quotes from their movies that fit their character very well. With silent characters like Michael Myers, quotes are replaced with sound bites from the score of the movie to add tension. Characters are equipped with signature weapons, some even able to switch between 2 weapons or throw weapons. The maps are all well designed as well. They're simply backdrops for the 2D fighter, but each character has a map representing them from their respective movies. I especially like how Chucky's map is an S-Mart from Army of Darkness that is selling Chucky dolls. For a fan-made game, I thought it was pretty well balanced for the most part. My only 2 complaints were with Candyman because his teleportation attacks could be abused easily, and it became frustrating to play against him at times, and the other was with Pinhead, as I thought he was overall too powerful, and that his chains could be abused as they have a very long range and are very difficult to block or dodge. There's also controller support for the game, which is nice. I used a PS4 controller, and it ran really well with a controller for a few days, but then I ran into a weird glitch out of nowhere where the game would pause whenever I taunted. I thought it was an issue with the game, but couldn't figure out how to fix it, and as it turns out, it was an issue with DS for Windows, as when I tried Input Mapper, it worked perfectly again. So that's just one thing to be aware of when playing the game with a controller. There's also the ability to play the game multiplayer online as well as just on the couch. There isn't much to say beyond that. It isn't a particularly complex game, but if you enjoy fighting games similar to Street Fighter and are a fan of classic horror movies, then it might be worth checking out. Best of all, the game is free. I will provide a link for it in the description. Hurricane Studios is actually working on a Terrordrome 2, which they hope to actually sell on PC and console. With the sequel, they will be using classic movie monsters that are in the public domain, like the Wolfman and Frankenstein's monster, to avoid issues with any copyrighted intellectual property. The Halloween season is perfect for horror movies, and today we looked at a game that took a lot of characters from famous horror movies and pitted them together in a fighting style game. Next time, I'm going to be taking a look at a game that puts us right in the middle of a slasher film. Until Dawn.